Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Live Life and Learn channel. And today we're going to be diving into something that's been blowing up online lately, the idea that to achieve big success, you have to take massive risks. We read all the tweets and look at all the posts, go all in, bet the house. If you're not terrified, you're not dreaming big enough. But in my opinion, this is not always true. And this seems more like a cultural trap that's misleading a lot of people. So today, we'll break down why risk-taking has become this glorified moral virtue, when in reality it's often just poor planning in disguise. Stick around because by the end you'll see success differently. So let's get right into it. So, today we're living in an era that has romanticized the act of jumping. Risk has been reframed from something to be managed into something to be admired, and then willingness to go all in has become a signal of virtue rather than a question of judgment. The culture now treats fear as evidence of ambition, as if the intensity of your anxiety is a reliable proxy for the scale of your vision. This belief has gone largely unchallenged, not because it's true, but because it flatters the ego of those who hold it. Now, most people assume the reward is proportional to danger, that the magnitude of the outcome must be earned through exposure to equivalent personal peril. While this is a comforting story, because it transforms recklessness into courage and reframes poor planning as boldness. But reality does not operate on this moral accounting system. Risk and reward are not bound together in the way people want to believe, and confusing the two leads to decisions that feel meaningful while quietly eroding long term outcomes. For example, the market is very indifferent to your internal experience. It does not register how elevated your heart rate was when you committed, nor does it assign value to the nights spent awake rehearsing worst case scenarios. Capital, earned through a sequence of low risk, high probability actions, carries the same weight as capital acquired through a single catastrophic gamble. The system only recognizes results, and those results are a function of ambition and execution, not of how much danger you were willing to tolerate along the way. So, and what appears reckless to an observer is often entirely controlled to the person executing it, because competence changes the risk profile of every action. High performers do not experience the same uncertainty as amateurs facing identical decisions, not because they're braver, but because they have already done the thing that collapses uncertainty into structure, and the danger others project onto the move exists largely in their own misunderstanding. For example, in medicine, looking at a novice surgeon as compared to an experienced one, you understand that they both take the same risk. But for one person, the experience, the heart rate, the adrenaline is much higher. Whereas for the experienced surgeon, they appear braver. But as a matter of fact, they have already done said surgery about 1,000 times. Therefore, this is an example that emphasizes that competence changes the risk profile. Now, consider the logic we routinely celebrate. If given the option between a guaranteed outcome and a low probability upside paired with near certain ruin, choosing volatility is often framed as living on the edge or betting on yourself. In truth, it's neither romantic nor profound. It is simply an inefficient allocation of risk. Yet this behavior is repeated constantly in professional life, where individuals pursue unstable paths because they have internalized the idea that significance requires suffering and that safety implies mediocrity. Every destination can be reached by multiple routes. Some demand blind faith and tolerate no margin for error, while others are engineered to reduce friction, absorb shocks, and compound progress over time. The objective is the summit, not the drama of the ascent. There is no hidden reward for choosing the route most likely to destroy you, and the outcome does not improve because the path was more dangerous. Those who operate at high level do not seek risk, they neutralize it. Their time is spent identifying fragility, removing dependencies, and designing systems where failure is survivable and success is repeatable. To them, the moment of going all in is rarely aspirational. More often, it signals a point where optionality has already been lost, where foresight gave way to urgency, and chance was allowed back into the equation. The most formidable achievements are not the one that hovered on the edge of collapse, but the one who are thoroughly planned, that they appear almost uneventful. There are circumstances where an all-in move becomes unavoidable, where constraints narrow until a single path remains. This is sometimes reality, but mistaking that endpoint for a strategy is a category error. And if your plan culminates in desperation, then the earlier stages fail to do their job. This means poor planning from your behalf. So, as you detach your identity from the mythology of bravery and struggles, something subtle happens. You begin to notice that the low resistant paths that others overlook, not because they're hidden, but because they lack the narrative and the projection in social media appeal. You stop mistaking fear for importance and chaos for progress. And in doing so, you gain access to outcomes that are not louder or more dramatic, but significantly more reliable. Because the defining advantage was never the willingness to jump. It was the discipline to make the jump necessary. Therefore, this is an important concept to remember that exponentially increasing risk doesn't mean you always exponentially increase the outcome. This is a full dichotomy that has been portrayed through social media because it makes our generation and the generation of the short attention span making it seem like it's all about big decisions and big movements. Now, for example, starting this YouTube channel objectively is a low risk move. These YouTubers always make it seem like because they started the channel, they took this an incredibly huge leap. But if we're being really pragmatic, all we did was create a channel, get a microphone, and speak. That is not to degrade other people trying to lower their success. However, to sit here myself and pretend that because I started this YouTube channel, I'm taking this extremely high risk and throwing myself out there is a bit of a dramatization. And because we are, as we mentioned, this generation of social media, people always like to exaggerate and make things seem bigger than they are for social media. However, as a final note, hard work and preparation over a long amount of time, aka consistency, will always beat this perception. So, before you listen to internet gurus, myself included, have a think with yourself, identify what the risk is, and if you can mitigate it, then good, even better. There's no need for unnecessary risk. And always, always think for yourself and analyze your individual decision according to your circumstances, not whatever you think produces the largest risk. This was the video for today. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope I didn't go on too much of a rant. But always remember to take responsibility for your own decisions. Thank you all very much for watching, and see you on the next one.